Okay, welcome to another episode of Expected by Whom. Prashanth has handed over the intro duties today to me for the first time, and since we've been doing this, and happy to say it's us as usual. We've also been joined by Michigan State hockey coach Adam Nightingale today. Adam, fresh off a Big Ten championship, both the regular season and the postseason, just finished second season at Michigan State, and happy to have you on the show today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
So I wanted to start off the top with you. You've just finished up your second year at Michigan State. You've been kind of working on building the program back up there. I remember seeing a story about when they won a national title. I know you were playing pro at the time, but I think I saw you were at the game watching in the box or something like that. I remember seeing a story about that from when they last won a national championship. And you've kind of come in there and in 2 years, helped win a conference championship, had a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. Wanted to kind of start with you as you've been building this, kind of trying to build Michigan State back up to where it's been in the past. What's the progress of been building a program like, and how do you kind of assess the 2 year in so far?
Yeah, no, had a blast here. It's been a fun 2 years, obviously, really proud program, a place I got a chance to play at and played with my younger brother at, and growing up in the state of Michigan, it's such a great hockey state, and you look at the tradition here at Michigan State, and obviously we were hired to try to get that back. And I think anytime you get an opportunity like this, first it's humbling, but you got to do it with good people. And fortunate the staff were able to put together our guys that have a track record of helping programs turn around, and high character people, and not just at identifying talent, but helping players develop. And it's been a fun 2 years, and we're not there yet, but it was I think if you look at 2 years ago, the step we took in year one, and then this step this year, it's an exciting time for our program.
Adam, so along those lines of building up a program, one of the questions that always comes up is recruiting, and kind of what that recruiting process has been like. And just in a couple of years, you guys have brought in a tremendous class. Had a couple of top freshmen this year. So can you speak to a little bit about, how your experience being a U.S. national development coach has kind of led to, your recruiting success thus far?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been fortunate to get some good players that have wanted to come here. I think really the first one, I look at when Trey Augustine decided to be a Spartan. He could have went anywhere he wanted to. We were on a list of schools when he opened it up, and fortunately I had a chance to coach Trey for a couple of months. We called him up to be our starter at the World Under-18 when I was with the national team, and just loved being around him. Good person. He kind of fits what I think Michigan State's about. He's a low maintenance guy, no ego. It's about the team. And but I give him a ton of credit, because when he took that leap, we had just taken over, hadn't played a game yet, and we were a program that, we had a lot of work to do, and especially at that position, for him to trust us. And I think, once, you get a good player, good players want to play with good players. And, Trey was definitely, really that first domino that fell for us. And I think that, when he showed confidence in our staff, we were able to add some more good guys.
You mentioned Trey, and it's with him, like you talked about him kind of opening up. And I'm kind of curious of first of all, we often see only the finished product of recruiting. We see a guy especially in college hockey, and it's a space where we hear a guy commits, and that's about it. I'm curious, when a kid opens up his commitment, or a goalie like Trey, can you kind of give us an idea what it's like on the coach's side of that, and what you can and can't do, just so for our listener who's never been in that conversation before, recruiting someone?
Yeah. So, I mean, kids, can make commitments, in their junior year, but, it's not until they sign their NLI. And, I had just coached Trey, and, I just got a call from his advisor and said, hey, he's thinking about opening it up, and would you guys be interested? And obviously we were, and then it's competitive, and I think the nice thing that we had, our staff, is, it wasn't a sales pitch to him. It was, I had coached him for 2 months, and then even the year that he was, before, when he was looking at coming to the national team. So I knew him, I knew the family, and we really didn't have to sell him on this is he saw what it would be like. And, I think he felt good about that, knowing exactly what he's signing up for. And we felt good about it too, knowing what we were signing up for, and obviously a high quality person and family. And, And then he had options, and I think he should have options. He should have good options. He's a really good player. And we think Michigan State's a great option. And fortunately, he felt that way too.
Yeah. So Adam, kind of along those lines, you guys have done a tremendous job being able to bring in Trey. You've obviously got Levshenov, tremendous defenseman back there. So, a couple of guys that you're thinking, or I should say Levshenov, at least you're hoping to have his name called early in the draft. They played a key role on your team. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of how you fold in those younger players early on, kind of task them with tougher expectations, and then what that sort of looks like in terms of your philosophy of building out a really beneficial college hockey program?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to have, strong leadership, and we got a lot of young guys. I think this year we had 18 freshmen or sophomore. We were the youngest team in our conference, one of the youngest in the country. And, I think you need really good leadership and a solid foundation. That first year I thought, we had a group of guys really step forward and understand, how we wanted to do things, and also be accepting of new teammates and make sure they feel a part of it. Fortunately, our university allows us to bring our guys in July. We can't do anything with them as coaches, but they can be with our strength coach. And really, it's about getting stronger for sure, but it's taking advantage of that time to start becoming a team. And I think our older guys did a really good job of making the new guys feel welcome, showing them the right way and showing them how we do things. And I really believe in that. Like coaches, we can talk about it all the time, but we're not on the bus, in the back of the bus, and we're not in the back of the plane, and we're not back in the dorm rooms, and I think that you really need some strong leadership, because college hockey is hard. And when you're young players like Trey and Artie, when you're talking about true freshmen, and Max Sturback, a true freshman defenseman, that's not easy. And a lot of our other guys were still draft eligible that came in. So I think it starts with having a solid foundation in your leadership group, and we have that for sure.
One of the things that's interesting too with that is, and it's kind of when you played college hockey, and it's interesting. I'm curious on your perspective this, because you're someone who you played your first 2 years at Lake State, I believe, and then transferred and sat out a year before playing your final 2 years at Michigan State. And obviously the transfer portal is now a big thing, and sometimes you get players with experience moving around. As a coach now, kind of in stepping into this role in this world where you can bring in older guys with culture like that, but at the same time, you got to try to build culture because you don't want people to leave. Well, how does that kind of impact you as a coach now when you look at through your early experience with it?
Yeah, I think our first year we knew we were going to have a lot of turnover. We had I think 9 seniors and then 6 kids that had opted to go into the portal. So we had to bring in a lot of guys, and I think the first thing you look at is it's not always looking for the best player. It's looking for the right player that fits. Unfortunately, again, Jared DeMichael and Mike Towns were both in the college game. So they had recruited and been around a lot of these kids, just the pool where I hadn't been, so they had a good feel of what guys' character was. And, that's really important for, when you're looking at adding players. It's the locker room's a special place, and you got to make sure that you're adding the right people, that it's about the team. And, that's what we value, at least as a program. And, making sure that we're bringing guys in that understand that it's not about them. It's about helping Michigan State and whatever you can do to help the team. And so I think just being careful with adding the right people. And, we talked about it even, this week is, it's one thing to establish a culture, but you really got to work to protect it, and our guys have done a good job establishing it. And so whether it's the guys returning, that's not a given that the culture is going to be great. You got to keep working at it, and then bringing in the right guys that'll fit into that.
Adam, I want to step back a little bit from the program itself and kind of shift gears a little bit to your journey and kind of how you got to where you are now. So obviously starting off as a video coach, with the Sabres, the Red Wings, and then eventually moving to the national team, and then now at Michigan State. How did your role as a video coach sort of shape how you approach the game now as a coach, how you communicate with players, and ultimately, how you utilize information in that capacity?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not one way to do it to get to different spots. And I even go back further. I mean, grew up in a family that my parents were both college athletes that didn't play hockey. I had 2 brothers that played, moved away from home, and played at Michigan State, and then I was out of hockey for a year. I was a superintendent for a construction company. I think I learned some things about leadership there that about having hard conversations, about relationships and how important that was. And, then I got a chance to coach at Shattuck St. Mary's. And, again, I bring all those up because I think those are really key ingredients for me. I'm not a perfect coach. I'm still growing, but having a chance to learn at a place like that, that's a fundamental program, that it's about, being a great teammate. It's about doing it the right way. And I certainly made a lot of mistakes there as a coach, and, but it was a good place to grow. And, Coach Conley had reached out to me. I was there at Shattuck for 2 years, and he reached out to me to come back to Michigan State and be the director of hockey operations. And, my roommates in college laughed because I don't even think I knew how to turn on a computer when I took that job. And, but coach trusted me that I would learn that part of it. And then I ended up going back to Shattuck, ended up working in the NHL or whatever, and with the national team. But I think, on the video side, I'm thankful for that, the opportunity I got to learn from other really good coaches, and Dan Bilesma, in Buffalo, and then Jeff Blashill in Detroit. And, I think some people look down their nose at, hey, you're a video guy, and I'm actually super thankful for it. I think it's a very hard job. It's a very time consuming job, but I also got access to watch and learn a lot and grow as a coach. And, now to where, again, I'm not perfect. I'm still learning every day, but as far as being efficient on a computer and putting together a meeting I don't need someone to help me do it. And I'm not waiting for someone to, hey, could you put this on my computer? And, I think that, at the end of the day, coaching's about relationships, and, the less time I can spend trying to figure out a computer, and the more time I can spend with our guys. And that's what I think it's all about.
We've had quite a few people on this show who have gone from the video route into the head coaching route at some point. We had back in the fall, we had Ryan Ward from Youngstown on here. I know he did something similar to go from a video coaching role to now a head coach in the USHL. And one of the things that I sometimes think is kind of ironic in the old battle of watch the game versus read the data when it comes to hockey is the person responsible for quote unquote watching the game the most in the area is the video coach, is also the person who has the biggest hand in kind of looking at the data and helping everything understand. And you were a video coach as NHL teams started to further embrace this. And so I'm kind of curious from a data analytics role, how you kind of find those tools and how they come into your day to day, and as you kind of look at them now as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we live in a world now. You have access to a ton of information, and I think the stats that can separate which information is noise and which one actually has an impact on helping your players get better, or actually, I think that a lot with analytics, right? You can pretty much create whatever story you want with some numbers, whether you play better than the team or didn't play as good as a team, whatever, you could build a case. My time in Buffalo, for sure, that was kind of my first time around it. And, my older brother, I'm thankful that, he's got his doctorate in aerospace engineering. He coached at Notre Dame. He played at Lake State. He coached at Culver. So he was a hockey coach that, was really good at math, and he wrote an algorithm for player evaluation, and he had met with a number of NHL teams. And this is when he was coaching at Notre Dame, but long story longer, he ended up getting hired by Buffalo. And where he's really helped me is, because he's qualified to actually look at, is not, when you talk analytics, he's a rocket scientist, and he's able to really put us down a path of what's really valuable. And for our staff, I think the college hockey season is very short game wise, and anyone you talk to in math probably don't start acting on the stats until you get to 25 games. That's probably the volume where the stats actually matter. And at that point, we got 9 games left. So you got to be careful making a lot of decisions based off of those. But I do think coaches for years have been doing analytics. It's not automated, but scoring chances. Like every coaching staff does scoring chances. And that's where we spend majority of our time analytics wise, is analyzing why are we creating scoring chances, and why are we giving them up? And then that really helps us form our practice. Like, what are areas that we think we do well, and let's make sure we continue to do those. And what are areas that we need to keep growing our game. And
when you kind of say scoring chances, I'm kind of curious of what are the things you account for when looking at a scoring chance? Because I think if I say scoring chance, Prashanth says scoring chance, a lot of different people can have different definition of what a scoring chance is. And so when you use the term, what are you thinking about right now?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you went into a coach's office anywhere in the country, and you would have long debates over whether that was a chance or not. I think anytime you're talking about stats or anything, you need to be consistent. So you set parameters on it. I think you need to have the same person doing them. If you have multiple people doing them, their interpretation is going to be different. And so, Jared DeMichael does our scoring chances for and against. And, essentially is if you drew a home plate, I mean, this would be probably for everyone, but if you drew a home plate from the goal line to the face-off dot up to the top of the circles across down to the dot and to the post, those any shots in those, you start to look at them if they're scoring chances, and there's obviously power play chances, penalty kill, and all those different things. And what we're trying to quantify is it's less that we gave up the chance, it's why or why we created the chance, and so then you can really zero in on both individually as a team, what areas you need to work on.
Yeah, I want to highlight two things you said because I think it very much rings true and it's very consistent the more we talk to people that have been, in hockey across different levels. And number one, it's that exactly what you said. You can use data to tell any sort of story you want, but it's really important to understand where that story maybe comes from and how the video maybe leads you to clarifying the story. And then maybe the data helps you go back to the video to better understand where that story comes from. I mean, that's been a consistent theme we've heard from everyone we've talked to in hockey. And then I think the second thing, that you mentioned, that's critically important is coaches and really a lot of different hockey personnel, regardless of whether or not it was called analytics, have been doing this for a really long time and actually know a lot more than people give them credit for because they have been watching this to the point where they're almost doing this in their head with that same sort of rigor and methodology that you laid out. So it's really kind of awesome to hear that insight and also just hear how consistent it's been, from everyone we've talked to in hockey. And so maybe pivoting a little bit here, and this is sort of asking you to take a stab more than really knowing for sure, but we've obviously seen the explosion of hockey analytics, the NHL level. We've seen now other leagues starting to take off. Have you, in your opinion, seen a similar boom in college hockey? Do you feel that more and more teams are starting to incorporate people, like you said, that are doing the tracking of chances or, even going a little bit further and relying on student analytics groups or whatnot?
Yeah, no, I think we have a group of students that Dan Sturgis works with, and they're looking at, different areas. I think we're all probably wired similar, right? You're looking for ways to give your team a competitive advantage. And, I think we all are trying to, everyone wants to find the silver bullet and why you win a game and why you lose a game. Really, that's what you're talking about. And, I don't think we're there yet. I do think though, I go back to, I think that sports, whether it's hockey, football, basketball, golf, tennis, whatever sport, it is about relationships and it is about people. And so being smart doesn't mean that you're discrediting, analytics and not spending time on it. But, if you told me, if you could say you can either do analytics, you could either pick one, analytics or get to know your players and what's going on in your locker room. I would bet on get to know your players and know what's going on in the locker room. So, trying to find that balance for sure, but it is college for sure. Everyone is competitive and, trying to find ways to help their program take the next step. And, analytics is a tool you can do that.
Kind of a follow-up on that. One of the things I'm curious, either in your past when growing up with the game or working with maybe, you mentioned this, I'm curious in your kind of experience, you talked about the human experience and kind of those connections. And I'm curious have you ever had a time where there's been a thought that's come up from maybe an assistant video coach or a student or something like that made you kind of take another approach and think about the game differently or anything like that? Just kind of when you talk about all those different ways to hear voices, and maybe it was you talking to someone as the video coach of Buffalo, when you kind of think about those kind of ways that being open to all ideas is important in this profession here.
Yeah, I think in any profession, right? I think as soon as you think you have all the answers, you're not growing. And I think, when again, it goes back to when you put together a staff is, empowering them. I'm a product of, again, going back to working for Dan Bilesma in Buffalo and Jeff Blashill, they always made me feel a part of it. And, would ask my opinion, and doesn't mean they would always agree on it, but creating an environment where, if you've got a better way to skin the cat, we're gonna do it for sure. And I've definitely, to put it on one, every day I feel like I don't even know if I'm the best coach on our staff. I think we got a really good staff, and we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. And whether you're talking practice plan and a different way to do things, different way to meet with a guy, different way to meet with the team. And I think that's really important. And I think your players can see that too. If it's always about the head coach or he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, players are smart, and they got to know that the head coach trusts the staff. And I hope our guys feel that way. They run the special teams, and I'm not micromanaging them. I'll give them ideas, and if I think something needs to be done different, I'll let them know. But at the end of the day, I want them to own it. And but yeah, that's a huge piece, and I think that's helped us take a step as a program. As create an environment. You hire a lot of really smart people, hardworking people, team people, and you're trying to use every resource you have to help your guys get better.
Going back to what you were talking about in terms of obviously getting to know your players at that intimate level, getting to know the players in the locker room, and that's obviously incredibly important when you go out into the recruiting space. One of the things, that's come up on a couple of conversations with folks that are at, levels that are still amateur is kind of how pervasive all of these tracking metrics have become, even at lower levels down into high school hockey and further than that. Do those types of metrics come up as you guys are evaluating players for fits within your program, or as you're recruiting different players? Is that kind of information that you're looking to obtain, or is that kind of information that you're tasking your staff to sort of look at as they're evaluating these players?
Yeah, I don't think what's hard is getting consistency with the technology across leagues, right? So it's hard to compare a kid that's playing in one league to another if it's not using the same technology and same tracking and those things. So, for us, it's still about do your homework on the character of the person, do your homework on the family. Like, are they a high maintenance family? Probably won't be a fit here. If you're, how do you treat your equipment manager? How do you treat the assistant coach? How do you treat the academic lady or a man? How do you treat the bus driver? Like, those are things that we actually, put a premium on, and things that we don't want to have to manage here. You're a good person. And I think that goes back to, we're not necessarily looking for the best player. We're looking for the one that fits the best with our team, and so we'll use any information we can get. But I think really digging into the human side of it, is a big part of our staff's job. And, I think our guys do a pretty good job of it.
One player I wanted to kind of ask you about, because his name's going to be popping up quite a bit in about 2 months now when the draft happens. And I've been there before, and we've talked about Artie Levshenov, who was defenseman of the year in the Big Ten, obviously had a great year as a teenager this year. You and I remember when we first talked about him early in the season, you talked a lot about just kind of his personality and getting to know him that way. And that's something that I was just thinking about. And can you kind of give the people kind of a picture into who Artie is? Because obviously a lot of people are going to start talking about him as the draft comes up. You talk about a guy who's a potential top 5 pick, and you talk about bringing the right guys in and the right people in. And obviously you had done your homework on him before he came in and have gotten to know him. Can you kind of give people a picture of who he is and who this kid is that everyone's going to be talking about in a couple months when the draft rolls around?
Yeah, as good a player as he's even a better person. We've really enjoyed having him, and he's just, he wants to be a great hockey player, but he's a very smart person. He's dove into our community. He's really dove into being a Michigan State Spartan, not just at the rink. And I think he wants to be coach. He's in here all the time, and whether it's watching video or doing extra work. And it's one thing too. I think I've really respected this about Artie. I've been fortunate to be around, some pretty high level players at this age, and he's got a humility to him that it's about the team. I love that about him. He accepts coaching from his teammates, and that's really rare for a kid that's, got a chance to be the second pick, and you got a senior that's saying, hey, you got to change sooner or whatever it is. And, his ability to accept that, because he understands that, he's not there yet. He's got to keep improving his game. And, obviously ultra talented, you see that on the ice, but I think what we've really enjoyed is the person.
With just on the ice, I'm curious, is what he did this year, is this what you expected? I mean, it's one thing to talk about the talent, but he did this as a teenager, one of the youngest kids in college hockey, playing one of the toughest positions. Like, is this what was expected, or did he kind of go above and beyond for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, we were excited when we got him. I mean, you look at what he did in the USHL, and that's, the USHL, that's a pretty good litmus test. Like, if you're a good player in that league, you're probably going to come to college and be a good player. And he was more than a good player. He was by the end of the year, he might have been the top defenseman in that league. So it was just a matter of how long it would take him to adjust, especially at that position, to the speed and the skill and the physicality of college hockey. And then you talk about our conference. When you look at the talent in our conference, at his position, he's facing a lot of high end forwards every night. And where I think we always knew you could see the offensive side is how long it would take him, away from the puck. And I think you watch his progression as a player. And I give Artie credit, because a lot of young D don't necessarily value that side of the puck. And you're talking about a kid that's going to maybe be, he was top 3 pick in the draft. So the expectation, you take a kid of that, he's going to play 23, 24 minutes, and he's got to play both sides of the puck and can't just be an offensive guy. And he's really dug in, and he's done a good job. Still got to keep improving on it, just like all the guys. But, I think he's done a good job away from the puck. And I would say that's where we've really seen his gains this year.
Adam, you brought up the USHL and kind of how the rise in quality of the league has kind of been illustrative in what you've seen from Artie this year. I want to talk a little bit about, how good the USHL has become over the last few years and really the NCAA, because I think the national team gets a lot of the praise in circles when we're talking about the rise of American hockey. But can you speak a little bit about what we're seeing with just the rise of this USHL NCAA development pathway almost to the NHL, and how many more guys we're seeing spend a year or two in college hockey compared to what we used to see 10 years ago?
You're right. I mean, it's amazing. That goes to the grassroots level. I mean, there's so many volunteers and different people that are coaching these kids. And USA Hockey does a great job of putting out material for even people that maybe haven't grown up around the game but have a passion to coach. Maybe they're helping their son out and they want to be the best coach they can be. So the resources they have online to help coaches, and even for myself, I look at that stuff. I think they spend a ton of time on it. A ton of research has gone into it to the best way to help young hockey players grow their game. So I think that's the start of it, like the base, and that's for anything, right? You want to have a solid foundation. So when you talk about the volunteers and the youth coaches across our country that are, a lot of times, whatever, you turn on World Junior or you watch the national team, watch USHL, you get excited about the players, but I really believe it's that base foundation. And then just the quality of the USHL. I think that's, really helped. I know that, like you mentioned, the national team gets a lot of credit, but they get to play in that league. And so you take the top kids, at least what people think are at that point, and put them on a team, and they get their teeth kicked in for a year on the 17 team. And, I think it's an eye opener for those kids of how good that hockey is. And, and then when you see the success now from kids from the USHL coming in, to play college hockey. I mean, that's what I said. If we're recruiting a kid, and he's a good player in the USHL, we got confidence that he's going to be able to come in and help us.
With your experience with the under 18 and under 17 team, what's it like the first time you see the U17 team? You see these kids who have been throughout their life, they've been the best kid in their town, the best kid on their team or whatever. And then this is probably the first time you mentioned them getting their teeth kicked in for the first time. What's that like to kind of see the first time these guys who are real elite athletes deal with getting humbled in adversity? Like, I'm sure that's a fascinating growth point for those players.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great spot. It's a great spot for a coach to grow too, cause you're going through it too with them. And you're right. I mean, they've all, they all get there and they've been the top player on their team, and they've had the puck a lot, and then all of a sudden, they can hardly get out of their own end. Even managing, a lot of these kids, you're down by a goal and it's the first time they're not on the ice the last minute. They've never not been the guy out there. And you're not judged on winning there, but when it gets down to that, the short strokes, and you're competitive, and you should try to win at that point. And, but I really think it was, and I'm thankful for my time at Shattuck. It was very similar, where we got kids from all around, and they got there, and it's an adjustment for them. But what I like about, both those places, it's a safe place to struggle. And I think that's, everyone talks about adversity and how great it is, but no one really wants to go through it. And the structure of the national team is, it is truly, you're not getting traded, you're not getting rid of, as long as you're not a troublemaker or whatever. And you gotta find a way to hang in there. And, everyone has multiple stories of players. I remember, Jimmy Snuggerud, when Snuggy was on the 17 team, it was really tough for him, and, but we had some guys get called up. At Cutter Gauthier, same, kind of finding his way, and a few guys got called up to the under 18 team that 17 year. And we only had about 10, 11 guys left off of our normal 17 team. And, Snuggy and Cutter, they couldn't wait for someone else to do it. If we were going to be a good team, we needed them to do it. And those two really took a step that next year, to the point where they were on our top line with Logan Cooley, and obviously first round draft picks now. But, yeah, it's a fascinating thing for sure. But it's a blessing. That's the best place that place does is, it's an environment where it's safe to struggle, and you just got to learn to stay with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for taking the time to talk about this stuff, talk about your path, talk about Michigan State's growths and everything like that. And, we always like to kind of, I guess we try to sometimes leave the floor to our guests at the end. If there's, anything, one thing I've been liking to ask people is, when it comes to kind of coaching and understanding the game or anything like that, is there anything that you kind of see out there that we often miss that we need to be better explaining? And I try to make myself a better writer and coverage of this at the end of each episode here.
Yeah, no, I think you do a great job. And, I just think the message out there to parents, I think that's hockey, sports in general, right? Is I got young kids that are in sports, and at the end of the day, it's got to be your son or daughter's dream, right? And I think sometimes as parents, we want to help so much, but taking a step back and understanding this is their deal, and they're going to make it in spite of anything you do, or how good or bad the coaching is that you think your son or daughter has. Like if they're driven and they're committed, they'll end up making it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.